time for another action-packed installment of Grindhouse Purgatory. But first, some refreshments. As we're hitting Memorial Day weekend, I hope everyone's staying safe and sane with all the shit that's going on. This shit'll keep you sane. That's about it. Not so much safe, but then now there seems to be scientists studying cannabis as possibly a treatment for COVID-19, which might explain why I haven't gotten it yet. I probably smoke so much of this shit that I'm probably immune to AIDS by now, but that's beside the point. But one more little hit here. Then we'll proceed to get on with some business. And by business, I mean maybe some films that have slipped through the cracks. Maybe they played a week. Maybe they played not at all. That was the thing with import films back in the 60s. Now, by the time I had discovered The Man with No Name, the Clint Eastwood Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, it was a couple years after they were first released. It's actually water, not vodka. They were doing a double bill of Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More, probably around, I'm guessing 1969 or so, or 68 or so, because I remember being in high school and somebody told me I had to go see these, which I did. That was, like I said, I think I covered the spaghetti westerns before, and that was, you know, one of the first influxes. Of course, other spaghetti westerns came and went, but they didn't have the draw or the legs as Fistful of Dollars or For a Few Dollars More. Sergio Leone had come up with another guy who would become a director, Sergio Corbucci. And they had both decided that they had wanted to make a western. Only Leone got in first. Corbucci did a western called, I believe it was Massacre at Grand Canyon. It starred James Mitchum, Robert Mitchum's son. It was okay, not spectacular, but okay. Well, just around the same time that the Eastwood films were popping up, Corbucci did a film called Minnesota Clay, starring Cameron Mitchell as a gunfighter who was going blind. Now, this would be the first in the line of Corbucci's flawed heroes. By the end of the film, Mitchell was basically blind as a bat and hunting his enemies by sound. Strangely, there was two endings shot for that film. One with basically the bad guy almost getting Clay to shoot his daughter because he was blind and couldn't see, and he was holding the daughter in front of him and shit like that, and then wound up shooting the bad guy and then pretty much dying in the arms of his daughter on the street. The upbeat ending that was shot for, I guess, Asian audiences and South African audiences, things like that, where basically Clay survived and was riding away and had glasses on, then tossed the glasses up in the air and shot both lenses out of him. Okay, so that sort of, like I said, that sort of, you know, set the tone for Corbucci's sort of flawed heroes. Now, the one film that came in, and it may have only run a week in, you know, in the States, if it ran at all, because I really have no recollection of seeing it, but then again, I really wasn't looking for it back in, I believe it was like, you know, 66 or something like that, or around there. Matter of fact, I could check, tell you right now. Django was, yes, I was right, 66. So, gotta have a little cheat sheet here now and then, you can't remember everything. So, like I said, you know, it was never on my radar and I never saw it. I saw other spaghetti westerns that popped up here and there, but that one was like so quick and so in and out that it went, you know, on a video release from, I think it was Magnum Home Video, very generic box, which didn't do shit for it, and supposedly it was banned in Great Britain for 25 years. It is a rough film. Franco Nero is Django. Basically, he comes into this muddy town and there's mud all over the place, dragging a coffin behind him. There's all kinds of weird elements involved. It's like a double, triple, and quadruple cross between the Ku Klux Klan, outlaws, Mexican bandits, a skeevy town in the middle of nowhere, and Django playing both ends against the middle. What he has in the coffin is a machine gun, which basically he guns down a whole shitload of people, you know, during the opening credits. And the main bad guy has a nasty habit of letting Mexicans run and shooting them in the back. So the body count's really high. The end of his double and triple crosses wind up that he loses all the gold and he double crosses his Mexican bandit friends. And they basically lay his hands on the ground and crush them with gun butts and then ride over them with horses. Again, going back to Corbucci's, you know, flawed hero, you know, guy can't shoot. So Django is basically cornered in a cemetery, taking the screws off the, you know, the trigger guard of the gun with his teeth. And this is a really painfully, protractedly played out scenario where he's trying to balance the gun on a grave marker. And these guys are closing in on you and saying, oh, you know, you're in a graveyard. You should be praying for your soul because you're going to end up in a graveyard. And they keep yelling, can you hear me? And at one point he just stands up and he goes, can you hear me now? And fans the fucking gun and kills all of them. And the fade out is the gun hanging on the grave marker covered with blood. Django was so hot that over 50 unofficial sequels were ordered. As a matter of fact, anything with Franco Nero in it that wound up in Germany was turned into a Django film. Tons of people played Django. George Eastman, Luigi Montefiore, George Hilton. Trying to think how many. It was just like, you name somebody. Terence Hill, I believe, did it. It was a whole bunch of Djangos. There was only one official sequel to Django, and that was when Franco Nero and I think it was director Ted Post were down in South America, and Ted Post asked Franco Nero how come he never did, you know, a sequel to it, and would he want to do a sequel to it. Well, they got a hold of Corbucci, who gave the sequel its blessing, and it was called Django Strikes Again. Unfortunately, they screwed this whole thing up because that was about the same time Rambo came out, so there was posters of Franco Nero holding the machine gun, hugely muscled and stuff like that. I don't recall this ever popping up over here, and if it did, it probably only lasted a week in and out. It was released on a double feature with the original Django with Blue Underground, I think, which is long out of print. But it was pretty true to form because this one had Django. He had retired, he'd been in a monastery for 25 years, was going to take his vows, but this woman showed up, and it was a prostitute who had a kid by him who was dying, and told him that he had a daughter and she was captured by slavers. Well, he tries to, you know, talk the slavers out of whatever, which are pretty brutal. I think Christopher Connolly was the main slaver. They go up and down the river on a boat, they shoot people, they're a bunch of scumbags. So, of course, they throw Django into this prison, who also, interestingly enough, is home to Donald Pleasance, an entomologist, because the Christopher Connolly character has an obsession with this fucking butterfly. And it wouldn't be the last time that Donald Pleasance would play an entomologist. So they rig up this way to get Django out of the prison by putting him in a steel barrel and rolling him out of the dump. He goes to the cemetery where he finds a grave marker with his name on it, and he starts digging it up. In the meantime, a stagecoach comes in, a funeral hearse comes in rather, you know, with the burial, and a bunch of Mexican bandits follow it. They kill the driver. They're about to rape the woman when a voice yells, "Let the woman go." And the voice is coming out of a grave, and they say it's a good thing you're in the grave because you're going to spend eternity in there. And then Django pops up with the machine gun and blows them all away, and he looks at the machine gun and goes, I got to clean you up, we have work to do. So that was the whole Django deal, which, you know, basically he got his daughter out, got revenge, and killed everybody. But Corbucci wasn't done, and Corbucci was going to make a movie that basically was going to blow everyone's mind. Corbucci had wanted to shoot a film in the winter, in the snow. But before that could happen, he did a few other films. One was called, I believe, Ringo and His Golden Pistol, which kind of sucked. Then he did something called The Cruel Ones, which made it to our shores as The Hellbenders. It was about a deranged group of Confederates trying to start the war all over again. Now, Clint Eastwood had always extolled the virtues of working with Sergio Leone, and at one point he was very close friends with Burt Reynolds. And he had showed Burt a couple of the films, and Burt was very impressed. So when Burt got a call from Sergio, of course he jumped at the chance to work with him. Unfortunately, it was the wrong Sergio. It was Corbucci. And the film was Navajo Joe. And Burt really shits all over this film, and Burt wears a wig through the whole thing. But the thing is, even though you could sort of tell that Burt wasn't really into it, the film, you know, basically showcased the talents of veteran heavy and Mexican bandit Aldo Sambrell, who was the main bad guy in that. So pretty much Sambrell capitalized on the fact that Reynolds was disinterested through the whole thing and made the film his own. And actually, if you watch it for watching Sambrell's performance, it's well worth watching. But then we get into 1968, and the film was The Great Silence. This was the film that Corbucci always wanted to shoot. He had wanted Franco Nero to play the title role Silence, but Franco was doing something else, so he got Jean-Louis Truant. Now, he spoke no English, and the whole thing was that the story centered around this guy Silence, who rode around with a Mauser pistol, shooting bounty hunters who were after this certain group of, down and outers hiding out in the mountains there. The backstory was that Silence's father was killed by bounty hunters, and he witnessed it, and to silence him, they cut his vocal cords. Of course, when he grew up, he hunted the guy down who cut his vocal cords and blew him away, and the guy that was orchestrating the whole thing, the bad guy Pollicut, he shot his thumb off. So whenever he came across bounty hunters, he'd shoot their thumbs off, so basically they couldn't use a gun. The whole thing is a very twisted, very, nihilistic view of the world. Just bounty hunters, and the main one is played by Klaus Kinski. In some prints he was called Tigero, and other prints called Loco. Probably one of his best performances, because he's a completely ruthless fucking scumbag who guns a man down in front of his wife, uses the wife as a shield to draw him out of hiding. His buddy guns a guy down in front of his mother. The mother pays Silence to gun that guy down. I think the body count in this film is well over 40. The whole thing is the woman whose husband was killed, Pauline, played by Vonetta McGee, in her second film rather, hires Silence to kill Loco. Loco knows the whole deal, that Silence usually provokes people into drawing on him, and he's a lot faster and blows them away with his Mauser pistol. So he's not stupid enough to do that. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on, because she needs $1,000 to pay Silence, and she goes to Pollicut, who basically tries to seduce her, and she won't hear it, so she offers herself to Silence, who initially isn't going to go for it. Now, I could be really wrong on this, but I do remember reading somewhere that the scene between Silence and Pauline was the first interracial love scene filmed on a major motion picture. Again, I could be wrong, but that's what I remember reading back somewhere. Thing is that Silence is wounded in this thing with where Loco will not basically, fight him, and then Loco's men draw on him, and he gets shot. And Pollicut and his buddy break in to do something to Pauline. And Silence's hand is burned in the fight, but he gets the upper hand and he kills them. The other thing was, there was a sheriff, played by Frank Wolf, who decides to take Loco down to the county prison because he realizes that some of this shit going on isn't above board. Previously, Loco had hidden a rifle in a snowbank and makes this whole deal about having to take a crap. Pulls out the rifle as the sheriff's crossing this frozen river and shoots the ice out from underneath him, where he falls in and obviously drowns. Strangely, in a videotape of this film that I saw, that scene is like cut. there's a lot of quick cuts in the film because it's pretty fucking bloody. The thing is, they were going to get the rest of these poor stragglers and feed them, but now that the sheriff's dead, Loco capitalizes on this whole thing where he can trap these people, put them in the saloon, and then get Silence out of hiding and kill Silence and get him out of the way. Well, everything goes incredibly fucking bad, and this is one of the most pessimistic endings ever filmed. Downright fucking depressing. Loco couldn't take Silence alone, so he has one of his men shoot him in the hand that he can. Basically, Silence is executed. Pauline goes to grab his gun. She's shot. Loco gives a signal, and his men kill everyone they have tied up in the saloon. And this scene is shot from several different angles and then cut in, so it seems like this massacre goes on forever. Really grim, really nihilistic ending. And so grim that he was forced to shoot separate endings for other countries. And the ending he did shoot that they restored on the Blu-ray, which I should basically show you. Here's something, little visual aid shit. This was the original DVD release of the film. It was never released on VHS. And this is the new 50th anniversary 2K scan restored Blu-ray, which I just watched the other night. So that's why it's fresh in my mind. So they shot this ending where basically the sheriff survives, runs into town, blows Loco away, Silence gets away from whatever, boom, bada boom, there's a happy fucking ending. This film is considered one of the greatest spaghetti westerns of all times, and by some the greatest western of all times, one of the greatest westerns of all times. Thing was, it never saw a U.S. release. Now, another rumor, fact, whatever, is something that Clint Eastwood had seen this film because it would have made sense because The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was done around then. He was in Rome promoting it. He might have seen this film. Obviously something did, but the rumor was that he pitched the film to 20th Century Fox because he wanted to remake it. Well, one of the Xanax screened the film and pretty much almost swallowed his cigar when the end came on and refused to release it at all. And a remake was never made, but 20th Century Fox made a film directed by John Sturges starring Clint Eastwood called Joe Kidd, which is filmed in a wintry location. Similar thing about Mexicans being exploited by a railroad baron or something like that. I haven't seen that film in a while, so I'll have to check that back out. But the other thing is that Clint's walking around with a fucking Mauser broom handle, a gun. So, I guess it was sort of like, lifted from that idea or whatever, but, it was never done as a remake. Corbucci continued. He did the Mercenary and a few other ones. Then, like I said, I think I talked about spaghetti westerns before, and they had slipped into, like, after Blazing Saddles came out, well, they all slipped into self-parody and pretty much were over and done with. So, if you get a chance, you're going to have to buy the damn thing. Check out The Great Silence. I don't know if it's available on any streaming services or not, but it's well worth a look. And like I said, it's so well cast, and Kinski is just a complete fucking scumbag in this. It's probably one of his best roles, and, you're just going to sit there and go, what a fucking dirtbag. So, well, that's it for this installment, whatever, of Grindhouse Purgatory. Thank you for watching and subscribing. If you're looking to buy any issues of Grindhouse Purgatory, you can contact me directly at grindhousepurgatory@gmail.com. Same for my DVDs and my autobiography, which part 2 is already in the works. So, until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you then.